I know that most people have gone through some really rough situations, and if you haven't gone through some of the harsh moments in life, you will eventually go through one. Almost every teenager will go on a rant and explain to you why life isn't fair, and also criticize it. But I'm not here for that. I'm here to explain why it's important to embrace the fact that life isn't fair. I'm going to start by saying that when going through a difficult time, one must not fall into the impression of being a victim, because behaving like a victim is prolonging your pain and suffering as well as getting stuck. Depending on the impression one has, responsibility shall be taken for their own lives and happiness. If you're seeking to be happy, you're going to have to accept the fact that some parts of your life are going to be unfair and others that you don't have control over. You can't change everything that happens, and you have to look for the good around the pain so that the pain isn't as strong. If you're a good person, unfairness can still happen. It's not down to that because you're good, good things will happen to you. One must know that even with the best planning and execution in the world, for a mission, things can go wrong and take a nosedive. But you can only change the response to the situation by recognizing the events that took place. There was a time where humanity was divided. Being born white was being born with privilege. People who were of a different skin tone of white were treated badly. There used to be a time where there were white-only bathrooms and white-only stores. And people who weren't white, mainly black people, had their own bathrooms for themselves. And some, if not most of them, were considered as slaves. This is shocking because it happened not so long ago, and some people see it like if it was ancient history. But thanks to people like Rosa Parks, who was a courageous and outspoken person, people of color now have rights, and they're not seen as slaves anymore. For the most part, I'd say. They're still treated worse than white people, and racism is still a persisting thing, which some people can get away with. But thanks to the fact that life was unfair for such a long period of time, people rose and fought for their rights. Same story goes for the women who at the start weren't allowed to vote, and in the 1900s they were seen as only housewives, and some of them didn't even get an education. But now it's totally different. In most places, since women can now work in any place they'd like to and get an education, even up to college, because they fought for their own rights. There isn't to say that women don't struggle in modern life. Some countries are still unwilling to change the way that women live. Some women are even murdered for the fact of just being a woman. And in some cases, they're not paid equally as compared to a man with the same job, with the same or more working hours. But the difference is that they're noticing that life isn't fair much earlier, and they speak up and join together. Some people have much more money than others. Compare the people who live in dumpsters and the ones who eat straight from the garbage to the ones who live a luxurious life, buying from designers and having more than one house. In one perspective, people who are rich most likely worked hard for it. But was their life easier, happier? And people who are very poor, did they try to work or gain money? Were their circumstances worse and predetermined by where they were born? The answer is pretty complicated. To become a rich person, you must have worked hard, or maybe it was inherited. However, some poor people didn't even try to gain a better life, because they don't have the vision for it, and while others tried and failed. People have their own unique problems, no matter if they're rich or poor. For example, people who are rich may feel lonely and feel like the people only want to be their friends for their money, while the poor struggle to find food and or may be unemployed, but may have friends or family who they're very close to. It's a bit of everything. And that's life. It's complicated and intriguing. When life isn't fair, one must fight through the obstacles that there are and persist to obtain what one deserves. If what one deserves isn't achievable, for example, being sentenced wrongly for something that you didn't do, the most you can do is reflect and hope for the better.
if life was easy and fair, communism would have worked by now. The idea that every person earns the same, no matter what job they do, depending on their capabilities, but that sounds too good to be true. There are flaws for ambition and greed for more money. So in the end, although life wasn't fair, and it still is, the unfairness makes society grow and be better. Sometimes groups of people in a global scale join to fight for their rights and freedom. And by accepting and recognizing the fact that life is unfair, one can act upon situations or be in peace with themselves. Thanks for watching.